Yakta tashagun katushahid.
Yaaw du Tuwáa Sigóo Kéidladi, the Sigóo herring. A Tlingit coloring book, illustrated by Joseph James. Yaaw du Tuwáa Sigóo Kéidladi. Unda Kéidladi day on the Kinwe Kéidladi. Kles Yaaw Hunda Kéidladi ye ute. Yaye dot Donna da Kéidladi day on the Goodway Kéidladi. Kles Yaaw Donna da Kéidladi ye ute. Ik day on the Shikwe Kéidladi. Ayatin Yaaw Shayad Dahain. Nigay Yaaw Aha. Nigay Yaaw Awaha. Achawa Kunakshaw Hikwe Kéidladi.
Okay. So we can see the parts here. Yaaw du Tuwáa Kéidladi. So as far as the parts there, du Tuwáa is they want, a singular they, he or she, and then you could name the thing. So like a big thing that we continue to look for is like these fill in the blank things. So now you can say anything wants anything, right? Kahwe du Tuwáa achtla. My mother wants coffee. You could say kutin du Tuwáa we douche. The cat wants a mouse. Like this first noun, noun one, would be the thing that is desired or liked. And then noun two would be the one who likes it. So this is a word order thing as well. So this could be we, and then something, or it could be a kinship term. So you can say ach kla, ach ish, ach yedi, right? And so there's a whole bunch of things you could put in there. It's ach kek.
And I think too that to use the terminology we were using, it's the seagull is doing, so the subject, and the herring is object. Is that right?
Yeah, like in the larger scheme of things, like this one doesn't necessarily truly have the subject and the object, although kind of, and so this is what we call like an indirect, and so we use is a possessive pronoun out here. So you could also say Yaaw ach tuwáa. So one of the things that we start to do is recognize what type of pronoun goes there, and then how can I change it. So if this is du, how would I say, and so ignore the way Kéidladi part, we want herring.
Hus.
Not hus. So hustu would be they. Ha. So Yaaw ha tuwáa. So that's how we change it to us. Like we want it, right? You want it. Yaaw it tuwáa. Right. So that just sort of, And we're going to get
right.
to this word, and we'll start spotting. Let's see, what's the next part of the story? We get to the next sentence. Okay, so here it is again. Yaaw du Tuwáa Sigóo with Kéidladi. So Kéidladi, it's this guy right here, right? It's a seagull. Kéidladi. Yaaw is a herring. There he is, thinking about Yaaw. So what about this sentence? Hun daka hiti de yandakin we Kéidladi. Anybody tell me how to translate that?
Boon is food. Dakahidi, the house that has that food. Day on the like the road or the way. Yanakin, well, flying. Way the Kéidladi, that seagull.
Yeah, so hun dakahiti is the store. The day part is to be going towards. So that there is another day, which is the road. But this one, like you say, day or dach. So hun dakahiti day, hun dakahiti dach. So in this case, towards the store, yandakin, flying, way Kéidladi. So again, like here's another sentence that just gives us more patterns. Birds yandakin, airplanes yandakin, and this is in the process of happening right now. There's a road by the airport called Yandakin Drive, right? That's here in Juneau. So now that Kéidladi could go all over the place. So we could put another noun right there. I could say Kéidladi. That seagulls flying the skagway, right? And so the day can attach to a noun, right? And so we're going to learn these types of patterns as well.
I always thought that the day was referring to going somewhere because you got to go on a trail or a road to get there.
They might be related, but this one is there's just like day dach. So day is just towards.
Jeez.
In this case, and it attaches, and so we're going to look at this type of thing this evening. We're going to start looking at these suffixes, and they're kind of these directional suffixes, right? Okay, where's my next one? Kesh Yaaw hun dakahiti ye ute. What do you folks think?
No herring. No herring at the store. Uti, the store for him, for.
Okay. So you were right. Yeah. So there's no herring at the store. And then like how this one works, this kesh is affecting the verb, right? So what we look for is we go all the way to the end and we see uti, ye uti. And what we just have to, and we'll start to learn all these patterns, but for now, yeyati is the positive form. Kesh ye uti is the negative form. So when a Tlingit verb goes negative, it changes quite a bit. So that wasa iyati or yeyati, that's what that verb is in the positive. In the negative, kesh ye uti. And the way that this verb works is yeyati means to be a certain way. But if you put something in front of it, a place, followed by this, which is another one of these suffixes. This is a great story to start with because we're going to learn these types of things tonight. Once you say some place, yeyati, that means they are at that place. So I could say, hun dakahiti yechatyati, I'm at the store. I could also say, klakwan yechatyati, I'm at Klakwan. right? And so that's how this one works. But once we see the klech, then that's putting the verb negative. And then what's coming after is saying that thing at the store isn't there. So now it's a little bit more complicated, but we still have two fill in the blank things. Kech kahwe hun dakihitik euti. There's no coffee at the store, right? Kech dana achji euti. I got no money. There's no money in my possession, right? And so there's a bunch of things. There's no boat there, right? And so this is, and so we'll see this, what this little story does is we're going to see this same kech yao blank ye uti. Akana. This is, oh no. And a lot of times it could be used, it's used kind of jokingly here, but akana is also something you could say when you hear some really bad news. So it's not really like a whoops type of thing. It's like a, oh no, crisis type of a thing. Ya yidat dana dakahiti de yanagut we Kéidladi. What do we got here?
Well, there's a new place, the Dana Dakahidi Day, and he's going a different way, Yanagut, because he's walking, not Yandakin, and we Kéidladi. So, but at the beginning, I sort of think it's the next thing he does, but I don't know why.
Anybody know what this Ya Yidet business is?
Now.
Now, right? So that's what the Ya Yidet does. So there's a couple things. So like Yidet could mean now or nowadays. And so, but when you put the Ya in front of it, it's almost like Yagi and Ya Yagi, or Tzutat and Ya Tzutat. So it's sort of like saying, you go from day to today. You go from morning to this morning. And in this case, you're saying right now. So now, Dana Dakahiti is the Dakahit means the house around it. So the house around the money is the bank. Day is towards. Yanagut is they are walking right now, singular person, or in this case, a singular thing, right? With Kéidladi. So the seagull, now the seagull is walking to the bank. And he's thinking about Yaaw. And it's the same. Kashyao dana dakahiti ye uti. How's that one work?
No Yaaw at the bank.
Yep, no Yaaw at the bank. I don't know what kind of bank this is. Bank in there. There was some kind of like a Wells Fargo in Sitka, and I think they had some, I don't know what they did, like every Friday they'd have some sort of quiz, and I don't know if you got it right, but they said, what's another word for octopus? I was like, nak. And they said, no, devilfish. I was like, get out of here. Close all my accounts. So, but again, we see another pattern, right? So what changes? We went from hun dakahiti to dana dakahiti. Now, when we write this, one of the things that's sort of standard in Tlingit is we wouldn't put this hyphen necessarily on there. We would just put the X, just write it directly on there. Sometimes though, if we would use an English word, we might put that on there just so folks can see that it's an English word, but that's kind of an optional thing. So I could say, Safeway, I'm at Safeway. Fred Meyer, right? Akana, oh no. Ikte, yanashich, we Kéidladi. And for the Yakutat folks, they would say this one a little different than other folks. So a lot of folks would say yanashich. So it would almost like this first X would kind of go away. But for Yakutat speakers, they will say yanashich with both of those X's in there. And so that's just something to keep in mind if you're from Yakutat or if you want to speak like the Yakutat people. So how does this one work? Any thoughts? Different place, different verb.
Towards the ocean.
Yeah.
The seagull ran.
Absolutely. Yes. So each day, we're going to learn some of these directionals. There's a handful of them where they kind of change depending on where you are. If you're upland, if you're away from the ocean, then ik is towards the ocean. But if you're on the beach of the ocean, then that's called niche. If you're out in the water, out on the ocean, then it's called yun. So there's a couple of things that are like that. And so like the ocean is a really critical part of Tlingit direction. But ikte would mean running down to the beach from the land. So you wouldn't say nichde, you would say ikte. And so for northern speakers, you would say ek. If you're from Teslin or Carcross or Cake, you will say ik. Or probably Angoon, Wrangell, right? Prince of Wales. And then Yanashich is, that singular person is running right now with Kéidladi. Okay, where is our next? Ayatin, Yaaw, Sheyedehin. What do we got here?
Lots of Yaaw.
Yes, yes. So Ayatin is
fish, lots of herring.
Say it again.
Fishes, lots of herring.
Yes, yes. So Ayatin is he sees. So they, a singular person, sees it. Yaaw is the herring. Sheyedehin is lots. Now Sheyedehin, there's 3 different ways to say a lot of something. This one works really well for things that have heads. So fish, people, birds, you know. If there are a bunch of decapitated people, I don't know how it would really work. But they're mostly living things that have a head for Sheyedehin. But I have heard it used for things that like houses and stuff like that. But when some of the speakers were explaining it to us, some of them didn't like us to use Sheyedehin for like money or some kind of abstract concept, because the sha is built right into the front of that verb. And the verb just kind of, the literal meaning is a bunch of heads that move together in a mass. And so that's what it means to have many. But there's a couple different ways to say that. So this is one here. So sees lots of herring. So now like they could see a whole bunch of other things too. Ayatin, yai sheyedehin. Saw lots of whales. Ayatin taka sheyedehin. Saw lots of mosquitoes. Ayatin Tlingit sheyedehin. Saw lots of humans. Yageyi Yaaw aha. What do you think?
He's eating a big herring.
That would be correct. And then it could also be eating many herring. And so this is one that's just kind of interesting. Yagay could mean big or many. And so in this case, it's probably many. Although if you looked at the drawing and it was a really big herring, then it could be big as well. And so this is one of those instances where Tlingit it could be interpreted one of two ways. And so as you learn how to use these, sometimes you would just have to give, like, it's a little cute story, so you don't have to, and you can see it in the drawing, and you can also teach about it. But if you were just talking to someone and you were just saying, in that case, I would interpret that as well, you would say, hold on. I would interpret that as many. And here's one of the reasons. Because when you say big, yagay works for big. But if it's a big living thing, the classifier would switch to shigay. So you'd say shigay yaaw. Now it has to be a big herring, because shigay could only be a big living thing as far as I know. But yagay could be big or many. So he's eating a lot of herring.
Is gay the root?
Yes.
Okay, like kugay.
Yes. And so ye kugay means it's this big or it's this many. So the K popping up on there is comparing it. So so you'd say yagay rechat. There's lots of fish. If I said shagay yachat, there's lots, or there's a big fish. That fish is big. And I could say yek shagay yachat. That fish is this big. But then I could also, like, if we're naming our clan houses, I might name 6 clan houses. I could say yekuge aweha hitki. That's how many houses we have, right? So we get it from the context, whether we're talking about lots or a big thing. Yeah, and so it's interesting because sometimes Tlingit is very, very specific. But other times it's like, yeah, that could mean this thing or that thing.
Oh, geez.
And then we get a slight change. So this one is, we see acha. So they are eating it right now. And then we get yagei yaaw awacha. So there's a couple things. One is this presence of the W in there. So we went from acha to awacha. So what that has done is it has moved it into what we call a perfective verb, which means it has already happened, right? So in this case, we would say we go from eating it to ate it, right? And then we see the bucket's empty, so his belly's all big. He ate lots of herring. I think that's it, right? Okay. Okay, that's a great story to look at. There's also this shkachnik one. So this is the children of the Taku society. And so they're out of Atlin and Whitehorse. So Atlin is where they're based out of, but a lot of them live in Whitehorse. Their teaching methodology is through, it's a lot of different things, but one part of it is sort of getting these shorter narratives and memorizing the entire thing and being able to recite it. So definitely check out this this text. And so they have speakers who are saying this story for you, and then you could go and you can click on here, and I think that's so that's Keishi Bessie Cooley, who's amazing. She's an amazing speaker, and now you can listen to her tell you a story. And then I think you can navigate this and read along, and you can also download it. So they've put in a ton of work. They also have made this freely available. And so it has a set of vocabulary for you in here. It's a Teslan dialect. So you're gonna hear Kum de Guas, where other places you might hear Ku de Guas. I said it long the first time. Yeah, so check it out. It's good stuff. And then there's vocabulary images. Then I think you get to the story itself. So, oops, I was trying to zoom in. So, okay, let's take 5, and then let's take 7. We'll be back at 6:50, and we'll switch it up a little bit and do some direction and location stuff. Okay. So to get us ready to talk about like place names and stuff on Thursday, and we were also seeing the day and the dach and a few other things. So we're going to start talking about like location and direction and how it works in Tlingit. And there's these sets of things that we're going to sort of learn about. So what I'd suggest is maybe what we'll do is we'll start looking at some of these things, and then I'm going to send you into the place name book to find a few place names that you think are good names or you want to look at and see how they sort of work. Maybe like Yandis or Deya, Shakwe, and so when we look at some of this stuff, it's kind of abstract. We're looking at lists and how these things work. So I want to bring it into the real. And step one is to go find some place names. And so what I'd like you to do before Thursday's class is go find 5 place names. And I'm going to show you a resource that you can use. So let's take a look at that resource real quick. Let's see. So if you go to tlingitlanguage.com, I think it's under beginning materials, maybe. Yeah. So you go to resources, beginning materials, scroll down for a bit, and you'll see place names. Click on that. And this gives you some scan pages from Tom Thornton's book on Tlingit place names. And so what I would like you to do is just pick 5 of these names that you want us to just look at. Maybe these are places near where you're at. So here's, it starts with Yakutat, and then there's 300 or so names around Yakutat. It goes to Huna, and then there's about 250 names around the Huna area. Then we go to Haines and Skagway area. We go down and we've got 180, 190 names. We go to Juneau area, 150, Sitka area. I think there's lots for Sitka. 570 around the Sitka area. And Goon.
But Hune, isn't it part of it is because didn't they had to have 3 verifiers before they would ever put the name in the book? That means 3 traditional speakers that would actually verify that was what it was called.
I think so. Yeah, and then they had well, Tom has a pretty close relationship or had with Herman Kitka, who just knew a lot. And so the other thing was like, I would estimate like every speaker knew like maybe 500 different place names, and some of them maybe knew a whole lot more. So then like, and how many people in a particular area knew a whole bunch? And I think there's still some too, like, that needed to be added. There's okay.
No, that's what I was going to say, because I remember when this was going on, I was with Paul in Austin all the time, and that was the big issue, was having to have 3 people verify that was the same thing that it was called. But just like sometimes, like you say, what you do so well, because you always say, well, I've heard it called this, but and so it's kind of like that validator, and there's so many names that people said still need to be added.
Yeah, and then they also
we lost so many speakers, we didn't have all the validators.
Right. Yeah, because at the time, like, and if you look, certain communities lost their speakers faster than others. So like when this project was going, we had 1 speaker in Skagway. And and as this project was going, like how many speakers were in Petersburg or Craig, and so, but as you go through, then it goes down to cake, and then what's next? Wrangel, I think Craig, Prince of Wales, and then Ketchikan. And I think it sort of wraps up around there. There might be some Haida names towards the end. Yeah, so Heidelberg area. So the ones in Haida, if it's in Haida, we're probably not going to take too close a look at it because we won't be able to pull it apart necessarily. We'll save that for the Haida class. But just find 5 place names that you want us to take a look at or to know. And don't act like these are the only 5 you can ever pick. Just grab 5. And especially if you think they're showing some of the things that we're gonna talk about here. We're going to learn about direction and location. So to get us thinking about this, there's kind of these 3 main areas when we talk about direction and location. The first one is it's relative to the speaker. So, and we've already looked at some of these. Ya, he, we, you, ha. Those are the sort of the 5 main ones. So ya, and we'll take a look at these, right? And how these function. But that's the first sense of space. It's sort of like wherever I am as a speaker, it's always relative to me. It's close to me, it's far from me, it's around us. That's the first type of thing. The second type of thing is between 2 objects, right? 2 things. It's on it, it's around it, it's under it, it's over it, those types of things. So that's the second type of thing we're going to look at. The third is these universal points. The beach, inside of a building, outside of, outside, inside, up, down. So the reason why we divide these into these 3 things is because the way we use them is a little bit different. So the first thing we're going to look at is I'm going to have you pick 5 place names and share them with us on Thursday. So just show us your 5 place names, and then we're going to kind of review this material again with another group to just show them just some stuff about our language and how we look at land. These 3 senses of space: relative to the speaker, 2 things relative to each other, and then these universal fixed points in the Tlingit consciousness. So those are the 3 things that we're going to look at. We're just going to keep in mind that these tie into how we use verbs, these tie into how we talk about things, coming from places, going from places, being at places, and that Tlingit loves to have categories. So we're going to see some categories that pop up. Okay, so the first one, relative to the speaker, and jump in if you have any questions, right? Because this is kind of the abstract part. So if you got a question, it helps us to break up the process a little bit. So we took a look at this. So you ayatunk, they are speaking. This person is speaking. So whoever's speaking, when they say ya, that is their ya, right? That means around them, in their immediate area around them. We could think of this as this right here or this right now. The second space out is he. So that's it's just it's here, but it's not right here. Could be behind me, could be just kind of generally nearby. And it could be also closer to me than to you. I could be communicating any of those things when I say he. And then the next one is we. And we is very common. Like we saw it, we Kéidladi. That's this thing right here. So Tlingit doesn't use articles like the or a or n. It doesn't have those. but these will sometimes work in a similar way. Like I might say, Yaaw, this raven. And usually that's how they're talking about it in the raven stories for capital R, raven. Then we have Y, which is way over there. So a lot of times ya is used to talk about right now. And I think it's the same ya you see in Yaayidat, Yaayagi, right now, today. We is used a little bit, it's kind of flexible. It could mean now, it could mean later, but you most often means it's far away or it's a long time from now. Long time in the future, long time in the past. This one speaker, she was talking to me and she kept saying, ayu, ayu. And then later when we got done talking Tlingit, she said, boy, I haven't spoken Tlingit for a long time. And I think maybe that's why she was using ayu a lot. So these can pair with other things. They can group up. So when you say aya, awe, ahe, ayu, you're using these things. They also pop up in yadu, waydu, or heydu, waydu, you do, right? So the first one is aya, this is, awe, that is. Yadu, it's right here. Waydu, it's over there. You'll also hear them in things like yat-ah, hate-ah, wait-ah, ute-ah, this one, that one way over there, or those ones. Those are the ways you most commonly hear them. You will also hear yade, wade, yude. You'll hear those. So like a visual on how these work. So sometimes you could say, yats'ow, this Dungeness crab. And if it's sitting over there, waits'ow, that Dungeness crab. Maybe it's kind of close to me, but not right next to me. Hets'ow. That would be kind of uncommon though. Ya and we are used way more than he. And then if it's way back there, you could say, yus'ow, that Dungeness crab way over there. Yeah, Chance.
So is half more of like it's just out of my reach, but it's not that far away?
Yeah, the way it's been explained to me, yeah, it's I'd have to sort of move to get it, but I probably wouldn't have to maybe get up to get it. Or it's you're just sort of, it's generally around here, but I'm not exactly sure where. Or it's right behind me, or it's nearby, but in this kind of unknown location. Like my phone ends up being heh all the time. Like it's here, like I just keep losing, like where to go, right? And it's also, but this one, it's so interesting because it gets used in specific verbs and songs. Like you'll say, Su hey de shugach tutan, and there it is. It's like hey de shuwatan is like opened the door or some kind of box with a heavy lid. Ya yana gwena he de kite. So he, it's in there too. So you'll see it used in songs, and so yeah, it could be any of those things. Like yeah, just out of reach, closer to me than you, kind of behind me, nearby, but not quite sure where. Sheesh. So then the fifth one is ha. And so we do hear this one used, but mostly in things like haku or things like that. But when you say haku, you're saying, come over this way, right? And that's how it works. Is the ha part is this and around us, and then gu is the command form for walk. So when we saw that yanagut, gu is how it's gonna sound when you have the command form. The T kind of mysteriously disappears. So for example, you have these two folks here, and then they see this other person over here. So this one might say, haku, come here, right? Come here. And when that person walks over there, then they might say, Yake hat yigudi. So this ha can take, and this first set of them, they can take a suffix, right? So hot, that T is a suffix. You can say hade, hadach, hot, and we're going to look at these suffixes and what they do. But the T means you're at there, and it usually means you have arrived. So that's why the T pops up there. It's good you have come here. Yake hat yagudi. Why don't we all practice saying that? Yake hat
Yake hat yigudi.
Yake hat yigudi.
Yake hat yigudi.
So that works for one person. What would you say if there was more than one person? Anybody?
Yeah.
So this is what that one would look like.
Wow.
If it was more than one person, Yake hat adi.
Yake hat adi.
Yake hat adi.
Yake hat adi.
That's that first set of them, right? It's really just those 5 things. Ya, he, we, you, ha. Right? Okay.
Sorry about that. How about Yake Hatia?
Hatia.
So you could say hat ya, and that's y'all come over here. So ya is the plural command that's equivalent to gu. Ha-gu, hatia.
Hatia.
So I wouldn't expect yake hatia, but maybe there's something going on there that I'm not sure of. But you could say things like, there are other ways to say that. You could say like it would be good if you all came over here. There's other ways to sort of say that. Sheesh. So that's the first one. So there's really just those 5 things. Ya, he, we, you, ha. But they can be used in quite a few different ways, right? And we'll keep looking for different things, but it's kind of straightforward, right? But it's always relative to the speaker. It's like,
yeah,
we're smushed together. My ya isn't your ya, right? So the second one is how 2 things relate to each other.
Yes.
And so this is where we start looking at a couple of different things, right? And one is, can this word just be by itself? So you can say diki, that's up above, and you can say di, that's down below. So these words can exist on their own. You could just say them. But then there's a couple other things that we mark here. One is if it has this longer dash in front of it, that means it needs to belong to another word, right? So in this case, you could say a yik in it. You could say, and this is going to be a noun, and then for these types of things, we call them postpositions because they come after the noun. So you can have a noun, Kate, da.
Kate, da.
You could say hit da around the house. But if you're going to talk about people, now you're going to switch usually to a possessive pronoun. Ach, da, ha, da, I, da. So we're going to come back sometimes to this list of possessive pronouns. So I'd say ach is my, I is your, d, his or her, you know, the singular there. Ha, our, ye, y'all's, husdu, there. Let's see. And show what clank, hat, ye, di, maps, dach. What is the maps, dach thing? Chan kananik. Oh, as might be it. You better understand the question. Okay. So there's this long dash, and that means it needs to belong to another word. So hitka, on the house. Achka, on me. Siudakusatan achka. It's raining on me. Suhakakewa'a. It dawned on us again, right? So the other thing that you get is some of these have this shorter hyphen thing, right? So we're looking, is this a long one or a short one? So the short one means this is a suffix that attaches directly onto a noun, okay? So here's the day, towards. So now you could say hit day, and you could say hit dach, towards the house, away from the house, right? So what this visual is sort of doing is just showing us some of the things that we're going to run into here. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you some lists of things, and we're gonna start with some of the more common ones. But one of the things that, you know, once we get into intermediate, you know, I think at beginning Tlingit, you're really learning a bunch of nouns, and then you're learning a bunch of phrases to plug those nouns into. And that's and then you learn some phrases, right? Once we get into intermediate Tlingit, it's like, okay, here's some other types of things. And it does get a little bit complicated, because sometimes we're like, okay, here's these directional things, but then there's 3 of these different things. And when we get into these, there's these 3 different types of things, right? So what I'm hoping we can do is we'll start going through these lists, explaining how they work. If it's a little strange, it's because it's abstract, but looking at the place names, when you go look for place names, look for things that are cool, but also look for things that contain some of these things that we're learning. So if you see nach in that name, grab it. There's a place called Tsiknach, right? And then there's a clan named Tsiknach Adi. And that nach is related to this one right here, right? And so as we sort of look at all these different things, and we'll find, like, sometimes we're gonna become good guessers on a bunch of stuff. We're going to theorize, we're going to make educated guesses, and it's totally fine to say, oh, is that dach this same dach? Yeah. And sometimes it won't be. Like, oh, no, that day is a different day. But that's okay, right? So just sort of walking through what this shows you. The key is above. The yi is down below, like way up high, way, like just generally above and below. Kin is upwards. Yin is downwards. Oops, that shouldn't have a dash in front of it. Okay. A yik is in a shallow container. And this is where there's a couple of things that get kind of interesting. Because if you had a box that was open, you wouldn't really go yik or tu. You would go ka. If to go into the box, and it's also into a coffee cup, which is, these things, there's some interesting sort of areas where you might guess that it's going to be one thing, but it's actually another thing.
How about a river?
Go ahead.
How about a river?
A yik, you would yik into a river. And
Okay.
what would be interesting is you would yik into a boat and the boat would yik into the river.
Like Nuguyik.
Achyaku yik tuwáa, hin yik taye yen chakach. I'm in my boat, I'm going down the river. Yeah. And so we'll also see when these apply to water, they're going to go through a couple of changes. But like, what kinds of things do you yik into? I'll have to find this picture. We sort of made this list on it was classic. We were doing like these kind of all day language things in Tesla, and we all went for dinner, and then we're just sort of, we drew it out on a napkin. I think I'll have to show you guys the napkin where we're trying to figure out all the things you yik into and what you do. And just to sort of clarify, yik is in a shallow container. Ka is on usually the surface of something. And then tu is inside, usually a closed container. And what's going to be wild is you're going to see some of these built right into verbs, especially ya, which is the vertical surface or the face of something, tu, which is inside something, and ka. Because you can say like, ach in kananik, and this is this ka right here. And you're going to say, ayaw de ti, and that's this ya right here. And you say, ye'awa ach tuwa ti, and that's this tu right here. So you're going to see that they're used, but they're not the same ones, but they come from the same thing. Okay.
But then what does ya mean then in this?
It means the face of.
The face of, got it.
And so, but it gets tricky because like a house, and Tlingit, a house has a face. This would usually be the front of the house, right? Good questions, good questions. Yeah, ask questions as you got them, because this stuff, like, we're gonna nest this whole system inside all of our brains, right? That's the whole goal here.
So in Yaaw, like Kungal Sayah, this is for the face of the clock.
So a good question. So that's a different ya. So that's this first ya that we saw right here. So Kungal Sayah is you're saying how many clocks is it? Or drums is it? So you say Sayah. So there is this other ya right here, which gets tricky. Right?
Sheesh.
So let's just walk through a few others of these, and then we'll start looking at specific examples. Da is around or about, right? So I could say hit da yanagut. They are walking around the house. But I could also say hanaka hiti da idekakwanik. I'm going to tell you about our clan house. So it works the same way. It's the same word. So it's around or about. Te is behind. Tayi is below or underneath. Ak is in between two things. Ak is beside something. Nach is through or along. De is towards. Dach is away from. Tak is the bottom of a cavity or a body of water. So like, this isn't really talk. You could probably talk if that box is big enough. I think that's all of them. Kin is upwards, yin is downwards. Okay.
Didn't the show up? The pretty girl went to the talk.
Yeah, so she went
Okay.
So
Talk.
you're gonna hear hin talk sometimes. And hin talk means in the water.
Which one did it mean when the pretty girl walked along the shore?
Yeah, so along the shore, there's a couple of different ways. Like chayach is right up to the edge of the body of water, like really right at where the water meets the land. So a couple of really cool things in this. So here's yik, right? So you can yik in the river, right? You can also yik in the forest, and you can also yik in a tree, and you can also yik in the road, because the road is a river. So there's another one of these, which is Yaaw, which is along the edge of something. You would Yaaw around the table. Nadak Yaaw qayqi. Sit at the table. But that's how you'd say it in Tlingit. The language thinks about it a little bit differently. A road has Yaaw, which is the roadside, along the road. A river also has Yaaw, which is along the riverbank. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll fix a couple of things on this illustration, and then I'll post the link to this whole slideshow so that you folks can see it. There's a chapter in Hausane Chayu Chatangi that also describes these things and has tables with, some of this is just internalizing a list of things. And when we get into these types of things, it's a little bit abstract because it works different in Tlingit than it does in English. But with day and dach, those are two really important ones, towards and away from. And they also work when we're talking about time, right? So you could say yideti day up until now, and you could say yideti dach from now going forward. It's really cool to see how these work. And you could say things like, from the time I was a little boy. And then you might say something after that, right? Okay. So the other thing that we sort of mark, and these are mostly marked in the newer dictionary, but they're also marked in Hausane Chayu Chatangi, which is it, I call them a relational noun and a relational base. The relational part means it needs to belong to another noun. Like, to just say like the word shagun, it should be a shagun or ha shagun, ach shagun. It wants to just belong to something, right? And it's sort of like when we've said this example before, like, have you seen my phone? Yeah, it's on. Well, I guess that works for the phone because maybe it's turned on. But like, have you seen my keys? Yeah, they're on. Right? They have to be on something. And that's how these work as well. Whether we call them a noun or a base, it just means, can it take a suffix? Because like the word shagun doesn't really want to take a suffix, right? So, so here's a word shagun. And it means a number of different things. It's a really amazing word. And so shagun, it means the source of it or the origin, its background, or like what it's made of. So like if I said ach shagun, that means my lineage. If I say ha shagun, that means it's a big, big concept. It means everything we've ever been, everything we are right now, everything we're going to become, our ancestors. It could mean any of those things. And if I just said like, a shagun dot, I'm going to tell you, maybe I'll tell you how this cup was made, invented. It could also mean like what it's made of. Like there's these parts that these components of it. So the other type is like what we call a base. And that means it can take a suffix, right? So we see this one here, the word khan. So one is it wants to belong to something, and two, it can take a suffix, right? So, and then we're going to look at what this list of suffixes are, and then they'll probably be enough for tonight. But we're going to pick this up on Thursday with some guests. And we'll be like, hey, this is what it's like when you study Tlingit, and this is how we think of the world, time and space, right? So everybody say this after me. Achande naku.
Achande nagu.
Achande naku.
Achande nagu.
Lago.
That's come see me, come by me, come visit me. Any of those things. It's not like come at me. No, it's like just come see me, come visit. And then down we'll see the day. So there's that day, right? Towards. So then you want to say at, to arrive at. Everybody repeat after me. Duchant uagut.
Duchant uagut.
Duchant uagut.
Duchant uagut.
So there's day, there's that T. Here's the T again. And we're going to get the. So here's da. Everybody repeat after me. Kesh idat at ayah.
Idat at ayah.
Kesh idat at ayah.
Idat at ayah.
As far as context, this could be rude if you said it to the wrong person, but you could say, if someone asks you how you're doing, you could say that if you wanted to. Just make sure they know if you're being funny, it's funny sometimes. But if you said this to grandma in front of everybody else, like that might be it for you. That's your last statement, right? But the other thing, like, so if I'm going somewhere with my kids and like someone's in an argument or something and they see it and they're just like staring, I might say, yeah. That's not your business. That's not your concern. Or if they come in and they like having a serious conversation with someone and they're trying to be a little nosy, or anybody, right? Yeah. This could also work for things like if someone's really worried about something and you're trying to tell them like it doesn't affect you. It's not about you. Because that's literally what it means, is it's not about you, but it also means it's none of your business, right? Okay. Shadach Yehawuti.
Shadach Yehawuti.
Shadach Yehawuti.
Shadach Yehawuti.
So a mountain has da, which is usually, it could be around the mountain or at the base of it. A mountain also has ya, which is up at the top. It's steep. This wuti is the same verb as yati. Yati. Kesh uti. Yati. Ya yeti, ye wuti, and yekwati. That's all the same verb, right? So here's some suffixes, right? So and we're going to attach these to a few different things. So a suffix needs to be attached to a noun. It doesn't like to just sit there by itself. And so when we say attached, like, and there's some different terms that we're kind of using here. So when I say this base needs to belong to something, it means it's written as its own word, but there needs to be a noun right before it that it belongs to. When I say a suffix attaches, that means we write it right onto that same word. And so this is, we'll keep looking for some examples. So your goal is to find 5 place names that you think have some of these things, these types of things on there. Or just a place name that you think we should look at and maybe know. That's fun, interesting, important, funny. I mean, there's some funny place names out there. It's okay. Okay, so this will be the last one. And then this is the list of suffixes. And so these are the main ones, right? So you have duck, which is from, or out of, or since that time. Sometimes it'll contract on a vowel to just the letters TX. Like the word kudach has the word dach, has that suffix built into it. And so sometimes you'll hear it as kutch. And it means too much. Day is towards, or until that time. Nach is through or along or via, going out through that area. The T is at, usually arriving at. The W or the like yadu or gusu, this one is at as well, but it's used when there's no verb. So you'd usually just say yaduchat, I'm right here. Neishuhu, they're at home. This one is also at, but it means usually residing or resting at. Is also at, but it usually means repeatedly going to or moving around at a spot. So Tlingit has 4 different ways to mark whether something is at a place, right? So Tlingit is, it's just always very specific sometimes. It's like, how do you say it's there? Like, well, how's it there, right? What's it doing? When did it get there? It's just a bunch of stuff that it gives you in that same thing. Then there's these ones. The CH usually is a different one than these because it's not really marking the direction or location, but it's saying like, that's the one who's doing the verb, or they're doing the verb with that thing. And then ka is to go after something, to follow, to go get it. And then this N is with, okay? So we'll pick it up here. If it seems like a lot, don't worry, because we're gonna take time, go through. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna find some place names that we think have these things. Again, I'll post this slideshow tonight to our class webpage, so you can look through it if you want to, see what's coming up. Use that to help you find these place names. Then over the weekend, I'm gonna give you a story, and you're gonna go through that story and find as many of these things as you can. And we'll just sort of see how they're working. We'll all look at the same story. We'll probably do the mosquito story. It's a good time to do that one. Okay, any questions? Everybody okay?
Is it okay if it's not in the book, but it's a well-known place for people that?
Totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, totally fine. It doesn't have to be in the book. The class webpage, if you go to, let's see. So tlingitlanguage.com, and you go to Learning Tlingit and Intermediate Tlingit. So if you ever miss a class, you want to review a class, basically what I do is when we get done, I go eat dinner, put the kids to bed, come back, then I'll upload our class to YouTube, then I'll put the link here. So like here's October 15th. If you missed that class or you wanted to rewatch it, you click on that link, it brings you to YouTube where you can rewatch it. There's no link there. There's no link there. Oh, I gotta fix some stuff, oops. But here, so here's where you would go and you would get the handouts for the class. So usually like slideshow, I usually put the chat up there. Apparently I forgot the last couple of times. But that's how you find anything. So if you, what I like to do is do these handouts. Again, if you go up, like here's the textbook, Hausaneh Hayu Katangi. I'm gonna try and get you all like the second edition of it in print. So stay tuned. I'll see if someone's gonna sponsor that for us. But if you looked at this book and you go through, there is a chapter here which is directional and locational terms. So this is the chapter where you can read about all the stuff we're talking about right here. So if you just want to read about it and sort of see some other examples, and we're going to go through some other examples in the slideshow, but the slideshow kind of is just the visual of this chapter. And so this, just reading it in different ways and encountering it in different ways, I think is helpful. So this has the graphics, and here's the suffixes, and then this shows you some examples of how these suffixes kind of work, because there's also some rules in terms of what does the vowel do for the suffix? What does it do to the vowel before it? And similar to when we learned that relational suffix, there's going to be a few different sets of rules that we're going to look at here. Okay. Gonna cheese, Shuhan. Wuk echa.
Gonna cheese.
Wish it got
Sheesh.
Yeah, goodness cheese.
Goodness cheese.
Tuwáa quasatin.
Yakwati.